Hi there, I'm Luther Blacklock. I'm a P.G.A Master Professional and I'm joining you from the Orka Swing Studio. The Orka clubs are made of the best components and they custom fit to your optimum swing. I know from experience they make a big difference not only to my accuracy but also to my distance. And where the measuring is done is here in the GC Quad powered studio or simulator. So the data, the launch data is absolutely perfect from the GC2 Quad, and we combine that with the correct components. It's a very compelling mixture. But in this particular piece of video I want to talk to you about Bryson Dechambeau. There's so much to talk about Bryson Dechambeau. He's such an engaging, lively character and he's real box office. It's great to see his success now and having won majors, and I'm sure there are more to come. Now the thing about Bryson, he's a rocket scientist. He does study all the detail and he's come up with the conclusion that if he played all his irons the same length, it would groove his swing. And it's a fascinating concept, but it's one that leads us to strengths and to weaknesses. So there is a certain good thing about having clubs the same length, because it creates the same consistent swing plane. The problem we've got, or the problem that Bryson's got, is the mix of the swing within that swing plane is different, even though the clubs are of a similar length. Now I think what we could see in his performance at the Masters, driving the ball wonderfully, hitting lots of good medium approach shots, but the wedge shot distance control for him was pretty abysmal and led to his poorer performance. So in the longer shots, fine, driving, all good, but when it came down to pitching wedges and short irons, he could be 10, 15, 20 yards out on his yardages. So why is that? Because Bryson is using the same sand iron wedge club with the long 6-iron shaft. Now, when Bryson goes into a bunker, that shot allows him to play on a scything, cutting action, keeping the face open. So that's a great way of controlling the club face. And his bunker play at Augusta this year was absolutely spectacular. If he didn't hole it, it almost went in. It was just wonderful to watch. So although the club was too long, technically, for the sand iron club, the fact that it's in sand allows him to hold out the hit. Now he doesn't have that luxury when it comes to a 7-iron, a 6-iron, or a 5-iron from the middle of the fairway, because the thing is going to turn over on him too often. And why is that? Well, when you have clubs the same length, as Bryson does, the 44-inch driver shaft, the shorter 6-iron, and the shorter wedge are constructed like that. So it means with a normal set of clubs, the driver has very little wrist hinge to find in the most amount of time. So there's no great wrist hinge with the driver, there's a little bit, and then you rotate. So the emphasis makes the mix non-wristy, but with lots of form rotation, which is what you need for driver. So when you can then get to 6-iron, you have more wrist hinge to find. Can you see that? With the driver a minute ago, it was only that much. Now the 6-iron is asking for more wrist hinge. Okay? Finally, when it comes to the wedge, we've got to find the most wrist cock in the least amount of time. And that's what works with a standard set of clubs and a fairly orthodox way of playing. However, Bryson is dealing with the golf swing. He's taken out the wrist hinge. Okay? Now, what's strange about wrist hinge is it's counterintuitive. You think, well, Luther, if I'm wristy, I'll be less accurate. No, you'll be more accurate. So Bryson is electing to make his iron swings the same because the clubs are the same length. But let me just show you something. If I go back, a la Bryson, into good plane, okay, I've got no wrist hinge here. I then get a bit of lag as I come in, but I come in and basically my wrists are not hinging, and therefore they are rotating the forearms and the club. Where's the club? The club is going left. If I cock the wrists, where's the club? It's back in plane. So what Bryson hasn't picked up on, I believe, is the fact that if you take the wrist hinge out of the swing, you make the swing itself more rolly and less accurate. And that damages his distance control when it comes to wedge. Doesn't matter in the sand, he's playing a cut spin, slice spin motion. He's phenomenal out of sand with that technique. But give him a wedge with water left, he's got a slight problem. So let me just show that again. The club goes to the inside, it returns to the ball, it lives on the target line for a while according to your technique model, but Bryson would be here as through the ball. If he'd cocked his wrist and hinged his wrist, then the wrist would be living there. So that's the thing that Bryson has given up. When you make clubs the same length as the 6 iron, sure, you think it's going to make everything the same, but in fact it doesn't, because it robs you of wrist hinge. And you need wrist hinge for accuracy. So let me just show you that again. I'm going to hit this shot with my little old swing, but I'm not going to rehinge on the way through, okay? I'm just going to hit it with no wrist cock going back and no wrist cock coming through. So here we go, no wrist hinge. Okay, caught it a bit thin. Ball started left and I cut it. So let me hit a proper shot for you. No wrist cock. That's the shot you're going to get, 11 o'clock draw. So, if Bryson did have a little bit of wrist hinge going back, he'd be able to rehinge coming through. So this is the other way of not going left with a medium to lofted club, okay? So I'm going to go back with wrist cock, and when I come through, I'm going to rehinge. This would be the sort of Colin Montgomery, Tom Watson model. Okay, so wrist hinge going back, so here we go. Blend. Okay. Now I think you see the point. If I'm hinging in this plane, I can't be pulling it left on a flatter plane. Okay, so Bryson doesn't need wrist hinge to the driver, none of us do. It's for free. So you're a great driver of the ball, right? He's a great mid-iron player. His shorter clubs with lots of loft tend to be volatile, a bit left. His clubbing is different. In the sand it doesn't matter because he's playing a cut. So what am I advocating? I'm saying, Bryson, do your thing, keep the clubs all the same length, but you've got 2 options. If you hit it with no wrist hinge, the forearms tend to win. You hit a pull draw. But if you allow in the irons, say 5 iron to wedge, to have wrist hinge here, you'll be able to rehinge, and if you've got a flag left or water left, that's how you deal with it. Okay, so I hope that's made sense. Bryson has been very clever making clubs the same length as a 6 iron, okay? But we can see that with the short clubs, it's more volatile. So let's take the good stuff from Bryson. It's very, very good. It's served him well for a couple of majors. All we're saying is, if you take away the wrist hinge, you're not as accurate as you could be.